Right, and you say without thinking, there's no self-regulatory behavior. The shootings are astonishing, and even the young people who are emulating one another, it's really quite painful. But we have to,
moral compass.
right, but I think it brings you to individual kindness, and you have to kind of keep doing that. And
This is the thing that strikes me. I see people
We'll sing, but you'll just like us. That's all you have to do
all
is
the
just
time.
in and out from the fire.
You know, and we've lived in New York City, we've lived in
Easy.
Rhode Island, we come in contact with a lot of people too. So you see some things on television,
But
but
it's surprising how much that little thing.
for example, I don't
I've
see
noticed it has its own personality. It wouldn't get quite the same if it was just.
yes, on
very
one
simple.
level, and I agree with you.
Why are we so humble?
I work primarily with adolescents. I'm a psychologist and work in the high schools pretty much in New Jersey and around. On the other hand, you see the justification of bullying.
There's a certain.
That's what I say, a lot of the technology.
it's result of the internet.
Yeah,
It's easy to bully now.
it's very easy, and the bullying is anonymous, and you can't go, I can't go punch you in the face.
Yeah,
You know, it's
exactly.
just floating out there.
Exactly.
And that's causing a lot of depression amongst the kids as well.
Not only depression, actually suicide.
Yes.
It is the whole thing technology by media, the social media, with all the good that you brought, huge. You know it, you're with young people, you know. Yeah? It's crazy.
And do you see the change? You've been practicing for a long time.
Yes.
Can you mark certain decades where it got
That's a very good question. I think certainly much more recently, and I think again, you hit the nail on the head with the advent of technology and anonymity and the loss of control.
Our guest speaker's here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Where's everybody? Did you bring anybody here?
Yeah, my husband's coming. He's out chatting.
I think that sense of loss of control and loss of autonomy and agency really has contributed a lot. And so you try to find the methods of control are paradoxically against what you want to do. And I also think there's a lot of surrogate parenting going on. Parenting within the home.
I mean, I knew I had some fans.
I saw known as Moses.
Yeah,
I saw
did
that.
you see this one?
Yeah, that was really good.
Did a good job, huh?
Did a phenomenal job.
You know, I told them the guy who was carrying this thing was lit.
Right, exactly.
And he's putting his
Right, and you do it, what if in some cases are a necessity. I mean, the building we live
You couldn't
in.
believe that we're doing it for security. You know, people don't get it. They don't.
Everything was what, aesthetics.
Yeah, you know, it was aesthetics. They said, why so many? I said, we can't. So you know, you can understand. People just cannot believe that what we're doing is just amazing.
You should have said it.
In the 70s, they had anything back and they put one in the center. They told me about what to do. They think they need to do. You know, Henry's kind of like no one should have a conversation. But Henry's really
First thing I said,
I tried to hit this stuff and water was coming I didn't know what they think of picture. It was very good. It was great. Even last. Yeah.
I just got back from Florida.
Oh, yeah?
We were down in our group, Fort Lauderdale, Delray. Our granddaughter goes to Florida Atlanta University. We wanted to see her. And so we went and grabbed our timesheets. Then it came down to fight.
I retired from academia,
Got up this morning at 4 to section.
I was teaching in New Jersey.
I said, you can't miss this flight.
I'm exploring. Religiously encouraged with my niece and nephew who have now moved to Phoenix. So
Okay, now,
the names from
it's like somebody is standing there,
I just retired.
and they say,
And the cancer is about to retire. So it's boating.
you know, it's something that's scary. It was so,
Did you see something?
yeah, I went to the doctor, then, no, it was amazing. He sent me to physical therapy. I'm going to an orthopedic, this doctor last year or something. He's an orthopedic.
It's at,
Next to the shopping mall, there's a whole sports therapy. So I'm doing some exercises. You know, something actually helps a little bit. It's okay, but it comes in text like in the morning. I don't know.
Hi, Beth Brewer. Hi, nice to meet you.
And I think that I know why. I told you that I had a little bit of pain on my knee, and I was riding the bike, and I pushed it because it hurts me. So I use a lot of my
yeah,
so that probably
I get it. How do you know? I know the history from my My friend said something not too nice.
yeah, we move. I use my, well, a lot of it's my legs. My arms do, you know, I never lift the tanks.
I go,
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Come find your seats. I'm glad everyone's schmoozing so much tonight. Not that many people. It's a nice conversation. Good Shabbos. And I'm sure you've all noticed that the walls are down and we have this transition happening in our space that represents physically the transition that we are all experiencing as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, to the start of the new year. And so, you know, the sound will be a little different. That intimacy we have in our sanctuary is a little different. But, you know, it's all part of just moving through the year and cycling through the year and pondering perhaps, if I may play with the idea for a moment, of the ways in which we open ourselves up as Rosh Hashanah approaches. Maybe the parts of us that have shut down, that are locked down, and that we want to kind of breathe into, open up, untie the knots, and get ready to enter the new year. And to prepare, last week we started with a nigun that Kendra Belinda will be telling us about.
This is just a little bit of a flavor of a melody that we'll hear Erev Rosh Hashanah right before we hear the first blast of the shofar. So we're just going to do it in nigun form, and then when you hear it on Erev, it will be familiar. Enjoy the rendition. One more time.
your prayer book happens to have 2 page numbers in the corner, please follow the one in the brackets. Page 128. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Ve'ayom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Ve'ayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. So let's all take a nice deep Shabbat breath in and out. Feeling Shabbat come a little bit more into the space, a little bit more into our souls, allowing ourselves the permission to relax just a little bit more. Go ahead, take one more nice deep breath. Now we're going to turn to the lighting and blessing of our Shabbat candles, and it's a privilege to invite Jonathan Wilder to help us light the candles. Page 120. We continue to welcome Shabbat with Lecha Dodi, page 138. Shabbat And we will stay standing, dear friends, and turn together to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144, page 144. Let's read together on the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravi. Olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al ein Adonai Eloheinu, v'shashveinu u'gumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nisma b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, ve'orech yameinu, u'bahem negeh yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. V'b'krat ha'semiben v'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai Shemo, Ohev Amor Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, You may be seated. Page 154. Ve ושמתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך לביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וכשאתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכנפתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Let's join together on the top of 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. On pages 160 and 161, we come to the Hashkivenu prayer. And last night, for those of you who were here, we had a presentation from members of the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office helping us talk about security and safety in houses of worship. And on one hand, we're very, very sad to have presentations like that. On the other hand, we're grateful for the help and the assistance in making sure that we're so safe that we don't even have to worry about it. And I shared this prayer because this is our classic Jewish way of approaching evening, which feels scary, which often feels very vulnerable to us. You think of the way children are scared of the dark, but plenty of adults are too. And so Hashkivenu is that prayer where we ask God just to spread that shelter of peacefulness over us, of safety and security. And so please read with me on the top of 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Shabbat Shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'azor et ha-Shabbat le'torotam ve'itolam beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael. Oh, Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. Page 164 for the start of the tefillah. Please rise. b'kol yom yaladu v'chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh. We continue silently for page 180, and you may be seated when you have finished your prayers. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. And you're back. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're all here. It feels good to be here. For those of you who are longtime members of the CBSRZ family, we're glad you're here tonight. Thank you for choosing to spend your Erev Shabbat with us. For those of you who are newer parts of the family or here for the first time, thanks for being here. Thanks for adding your ruach, your spirit, to our feeling in this space. And we hope you feel as much a part of the mishpacha as everybody else in the family. Let's take this good and prayerful feeling, this peacefulness, this sense of calm that we've been able to access even just a tiny bit tonight. And let's send it out to people in our lives, in our families, our friends, those who are ill, who are sick, who are suffering, people who are in pain. Let's send them our prayers for peacefulness and for wholeness and a return to wellness. Tonight we are sending our prayers for a refuah shlema, a complete and speedy recovery, to to Reagan Konecki, John DiNicola, Nancy Schwam, Miriam Swidler, Larry Mancini, Charles Sabat, Burl Bellows, Carrie Bellows, Iris Clark, Stacy Reed, Debbie Clymer, Nan Kraszewski, Daphne Rosenberg, Heather Waters, Joyce Giuseppe, Savannah Johnson, Ronnie Burson-Weiner, Lenore Lesser, Jimmy and Grobno, Donald Hoffman, Denise Davies, Howard Schwadell, Ruben Starkman, Jerry Kelly, and Harvey Goldstein. Who else are you thinking about tonight and sending your healing prayers to?
Edit Brooks.
Claudia, Chen Cabruzzi,
Mishaber Havatenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Livarech Livarpei et Kol Cholim Ha'ela. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless and heal all who are ill, all who are in pain, all who are suffering. We pray, God, that they return to that sense of shlemut, of wholeness and of peacefulness for which we all long. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh cholim, we praise you, God, who cares about the sick. Let us all say together. Amen. And let's turn now to page 371 to sing Shabbat together. And we have simchas, smachot, happy occasions to celebrate. Any birthdays, anniversaries, significant moments in your life? When was your birthday?
September 1st.
Well, Yom Haledet Sameach, happy birthday, and many, many more.
Mine was September 10th.
Well, hey, Yom Haledet Sameach, happy birthday, and many more, and good health and joy. Yes. We even have little birthday tchotchkes if you want. Little pads of paper and slinkies and stuff if you want. But happy birthday. Many more good health and joy. Who else? It was my sister's birthday. That was really nice. We wished her a happy birthday. So hopefully for everybody, September so far has been an okay one. And we'll continue. And your birthday month.
Yeah, right. So your birthday will be coming up too.
Oh, very nice. Well, in addition to it being September, of course, it is the Hebrew month of Elul. And part of what that means for us here at CBSRZ is we have a wonderful speaker series. And so in just a moment, I'll be inviting up tonight's Elul speaker, Sam Gavish. I'll say more about him in just a moment. But I also wanted to share with you a reading from this wonderful guided journal that perhaps you're familiar with. I shared a piece 2 weeks ago. It's called Preparing Your Heart for the High Holy Days. And it's by Carrie Olitsky and Rachel Sabath, who is now Rachel Sabath Beit Halachmi. And it's just beautiful writing prompts with space to fill in. And it's a way to go through the process of Cheshbon Nefesh, of taking accounting of our souls, in a really reflective and more kind of structured way for those who find that meaningful. So this one begins with a quote from Maimonides, from Rambam, who was a medieval commentator. First, he writes, "What constitutes teshuvah?" That's that word that we use for repentance or for returning. That sinners should abandon their sins and remove them from their thoughts, resolving in their hearts never to commit them again. One must verbally confess and state these matters which have been resolved in one's heart. So then the book continues. The rabbis constructed many different systems of repentance, all of which operate on the principle that teshuvah occurs in stages, each new stage depending on the one before. The process is a stairway ascending toward heaven. That probably would make a good song. The goal is to draw near to God. We must tread each step of the stairway, at least briefly, to get there. Even at the first step, however, we begin to change. We can decide to quit a bad habit, cold turkey, to stop a destructive behavior and wipe it from our minds, resolving never to do it again. The rabbis teach us that we must not only stop a certain behavior, but must also speak about our teshuvah, describing how the behavior is wrong and how we have resolved to change in our hearts. With all of our modern knowledge of psychology, we may be skeptical that sudden change through teshuvah is even possible. We know that those recovering from addictive behaviors, for example, smoking, drinking, taking drugs, overeating, compulsive sexual behavior, rarely succeed in suddenly changing their behavior. We recognize that to change such powerfully motivated and ingrained habits, we must make a step-by-step climb toward a better self. But still we must, despite our behaviors and shame about ourselves, face that first step. We may feel unsteady. We may be thrown off balance as we leave our familiar selves, but we need to reach that next level and that next step. Only there can we hope for a better future and to get closer to God. Think about those steps in your own lives and what stairway is calling to you to be ascended this year. So our Elul Speaker series this year is entitled L'chaim, Celebrating Jewish Life. And our three speakers, beginning last week with Jody Winch, continuing tonight with Sam Gavish, and concluding next week with Deb Ruddy, are three of your fellow congregants who have had really interesting and surprising pathways towards becoming part of our community here at CBSRZ. So they're celebrating Jewish life, but also the unique ways in which they have embraced and expressed that part of themselves. And so I would like to invite up Sam to share with us his story.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a microphone.
Just hit the front button.
Oh, because it's on.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. It's helpful for everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. So when Rabbi Velos told me that she wanted me to talk about myself, my Judaism, my Jewish life, and especially from Israel, I thought, how long do I need to speak? 2 hours? She said, no, 5 minutes. I said, 5 minutes for my life story? That's a little bit of a challenge. So what I did is, in order to control, she said, maybe you can do 7 minutes. But in order to control the time, what I decided the best thing to do is I wrote it down on a piece of paper, my words, and I thought that controlling the time would be the best way if I just read it from a piece of paper. So it would be like a page and a half or something. So let me read it to you. My name is Shmuel Gavish. I was born in Israel 5 years and 7 months post-World War II. Israel was only 2 years and 7 months old then. On this occasion, I chose to tell you my father's story because his story shaped more than anything else my Jewish and Israeli identity. Both my parents survived Auschwitz concentration camp. After the liberation of Auschwitz by the Red Army, my father, Yitzhak, and his only surviving brother, Shmuel, found themselves alone in the world. Yitzhak was 17 and Shmuel was 15. After losing hope to recover their home in Munkac, Czechoslovakia, the brothers decided to travel to Eretz Israel, then still known as Palestine. Their attempt to enter Palestine was unsuccessful because the British government that had made it on Palestine turned them down and sent them to a holding camp in Cyprus, where my parents met for the first time. On May 14, 1948, Israel was declared an independent sovereign state. Shortly thereafter, my mother, Zahava, and my father and his brother made Aliyah to the state, to the new state. A few days after their arrival to Haifa, both my father and his brother were recruited into the newly formed IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, that replaced then the Haganah and the Palmach. Israel's independence war was in its most ferocious state. The daily fierce fights with the Arabs that surrounded Israel took an unimaginable toll on the new immigrants. My uncle Shmuel didn't even master the Hebrew language when he was killed when his command car ran over a lead mine outside Jerusalem. He was just 19 years old. And when I was born a year later, I was named after him and proudly carry his memory to this day. After his brother's death, my father lost completely his emotional affiliation with Judaism. Quote, I can't and don't believe in the prayer El Maleh Rachamim, straight translation, God, full of mercy. He used to say, needless to say that my brother and I grew up as secular Sabbats with very little interest in the Jewish religion and with very limited appreciation for our Jewish heritage, the Masorah. My father expressed some remorse after my brother, an officer in the Golani Brigade, and I, a platoon sergeant in the Paratroopers Brigade, survived the attrition war from 1968 to 73 and the Yom Kippur War in October 73. My father was convinced that our survival was a signal from God, a sign of peacemaking maybe. I remember as it was yesterday that when I called him to tell him that I'm getting married here in the US, his first question to my complete amazement was, is she Jewish? As a matter of fact, my first wife was Jewish. I was remarried in 2008 to a wonderful non-Jewish woman who I dated since 2001. She's sitting right there. And this brings me to the essence of my food presentation this evening. My wife Sheila and I moved to Essex from Providence, Rhode Island, a little over a year ago. When the moving dust has settled and most of the packing cardboards have been recycled, we both looked at each other and wondered, okay, now what? I remember saying, honey, let's drive around the neighborhood and see if there is a synagogue around here. So yes, against all odds, we still stick to each other wherever we are. And needless to say that after meeting many of the members of CBSRZ, we know that our roaming around the neighborhood then paid off. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yasha Koach, you've like given us just a tiny taste, and I know I want to hear more. So we'll have to find some time saying when you can come in and tell more of your story, because I know there's so much more to it. But thank you so much, Yasha Koach. So, dear friends, a few announcements. First, tomorrow morning, as always, at 9 a.m., we have Holy Scrollers, our Torah study group, open to everybody. We are looking at Parashat Kitavo for the Levi Parashah, and it's always really exciting and intriguing and challenging conversation. So that's 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We even have bagels. Every now and then there's even herring. So no, come. And then tomorrow night, I really hope you will join us. 6:30 p.m. is our Slichot observance. We're going to be screening the film Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is the wonderful documentary about Mr. Rogers, which came out last year. It's hard to get through without crying. Even in my preparations, I was getting all teary, but it's really wonderful. It's a wonderful film that lends itself so well to the High Holy Day season and towards all of our hopes of bettering ourselves as well as bettering the world. So that starts at 6:30 p.m. with Havdalah. Then we show the film, we have a discussion, then and there's movie treats and popcorn and candy and stuff. Thanks to Aliens. And then we are going to come here into the sanctuary for our Slichot service. Our choir is with us, which is really wonderful. And we take part during that worship service in replacing our blue Torah mantles with the white ones. We do that together. And we hear for the first time some of those melodies like Avinu Malkeinu and Val Kulam, and little tastes to get us ready for Rosh Hashanah, which of course, Erev Rosh Hashanah is on Sunday night, the 29th. So tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m., I hope you will join us. Open to all. Then on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m., in addition to Kivun, our religious school, I'm offering a high holiday workshop for all adults who just want a refresher on some of the themes and the symbols of the High Holy Days and just want to kind of maybe learn one new piece of trivia if you think you know everything else, and come share your memories and reflections on the High Holy Day season. So that's 9:30 on Sunday. A few other just minor announcements, but that are pretty important. Please note, if you haven't read your email, that due to our new security policy, we are requiring tickets for everyone for High Holy Day services this year. We've been away from tickets for a long time. They will be required this year. So please make sure to bring your tickets with you. If you haven't already taken part in the North Star survey, our questionnaire that went around about our revised mission statement, we want to hear from you. We are still looking for parking lot attendants, people to help with the very holy duty of telling us where to park our cars on the High Holy Days. And then finally, we have Rosh Hashanah cards, the beautiful note cards that have the drawing of CBSRZ on the front. 18 for $18, such a bargain. So let us know if you are interested in some of those Rosh Hashanah cards. Any other announcements? No? Good. All right. So let's turn to our concluding prayers back on page 586 for Aleinu. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula l'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kiboyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishkachot ha'aretz. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear. But if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as, in their higher moments, they themselves wished to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. Page 598. If you hear the name of a loved one, a friend or family member on our Yortzeit list, and if you're comfortable doing so, you're invited to rise when you hear his or her name, and then we will all join you and rise to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. This Shabbat, we are marking the Yortzeits, the anniversaries of death for Mary Oster, Lee Barron, Min Chiat, Harriet Feldmar, Lillian Goldstein, Ruth Gottlieb, Irene Kemp, Lowell Klappholtz, Goldie Lambeck, Henry Price, Doris Reiner, Saul Seligman, and Rabbi Harold Saul White. Zichronam livracha. Who else is marking a Shiva Shloshim or Yortzeit and would like to share a name out loud? May all of the memories of our loved ones be a blessing to those who loved them and knew them well. Together now on page 598, we rise and we join in the words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma tivarach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayei chon v'yomech chon v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agalah u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah v'varach le'olam u'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'risha b'richum. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushvechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlam araba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. We will conclude this evening with Gesher Tzad Me'od on page 643 by Rabbi Nachman Kratzlav, who reminds us that the whole world is this really kind of narrow bridge. So you see us doing this, there's the narrow bridge, but the most important thing is to still not be afraid. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzad me'od, gesher tzad me'od, gesher tzad me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzad V'ochem l'shalom, tzivchem l'shalom. May all of your comings and goings always be filled with shalom, with peace. Shabbat Shalom. Come join us for Kiddush and Motzi and Omen.
Charge it for me.
See, that's because I.
Yeah, he's been, just playing with his phone. People must think he's just playing with his phone. They don't know why he's playing with his targets.
So you put it on two. Like three school, but you know, she's the, but it's too much, right?
Oh, it's too much.
I can show you, the, when you do that.
Yeah, you put it on
On the phone.
I hope I don't have any more conferences. I'll be there up and stop working. Oh, where?
You say goodbye?
No, Chala.
Oh, Chala.
Chala.
Yeah, Chala, hey.
No Chala.
We're Chala.
So what are they doing in therapy?
She put this
Electrical stem?
yeah, this,
With a hot pack on it?
Yeah, hot pack on top of it, yeah, the whole shebang.
What should do, actually massage it
Didn't have 5 minutes to sit still. Really? You got a lot of color. That's some good color. And they're trying to hide.
So the regular, some reason that you that is regular thick reports.
All
second.
Right?
On your hand, Mo.